and welcome to my channel Inspiring Life Changes. This is a reading today for the new moon that is taking place on the 21st of June, which as I'm speaking now is going to be tomorrow, and it's a massive new moon that is taking place in Cancer. And there are a few reasons for this fact which I will go over as I go through my astrology, through the notes that I have made and have written up on my laptop. So I will be using that because there's a lot of information and I can't remember all of it. So I've written my notes down and then I've put my notes onto my laptop. So what I'm going to call this particular new moon, because it's a new moon with a solar eclipse taking place in Cancer, I'm calling it Return to the Unity of Our Deeper Collective Heart. So that's the energy that I feel that is in play at this time, particularly because it's in Cancer as well. So the divine masculine energy and the divine feminine energy, the sun and the moon, come together, they form a conjunction. And during that conjunction, that's when you get a new moon. It's when you no longer can see the moon in the sky at all. So it's also known as a dark moon. But this particular new moon, however, at the 0 degrees and 21 point of Cancer, which for us in the UK is actually taking place on solstice, which is the 21st of June. So I find that quite interesting as well. Is also a solar eclipse, as I was saying, and this is huge. Not only is it happening on the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, and it's taking place at 7:41 UK time, but it's also the halfway point of our year. So it's the longest amount of sunlight hours we would normally have. So those longest amount of sunlight hours are going to be cut by a solar eclipse. And it's taking place as well on what's known in astrological terms as the Aries or cardinal point. Now the Aries or cardinal point is also known as the axis mundi or the world stage, and it's the cross of the Aries point, the Libra point, the Cancer and the Capricorn point as well. So it is literally, it makes up what's known as the cardinal cross. And for any of those points, for anything to happen, if you have any of your planets on any of those points, then it's very significant because they are known as the world stage points. So people are much more likely to become well known if they have those particular points with something on them as well, because it's like being thrust into the limelight, literally. So what this is saying is that the events that are going to take place around this new moon, what the new moon energy is about, we will see it and experience it both individually in our own lives, but we will also see it play out on the world stage, and we will all experience it as it plays out on the world stage as well. And because it's an eclipse, it's a solar eclipse and it's big energy, it also means that this energy is going to run for at least 6 months and even longer, even beyond 6 months to a year. We will kind of see the reverberations of this energy as it kind of moves beyond, shall we say. So Cancer is of course ruled by the moon as well. And the moon is our emotional, subconscious, deeply feeling and intuitive, almost instinctual, ancient kind of awareness itself. It's that kind of harking back to our earlier times, our earlier days. You know, we're still ruled by the moon, as women very much so. When in her own sign, which she is going to be, this energy is magnified. So Cancer is the watery, sensitive, home-loving reflection of the moon's own energy. It's like magnifying both the Cancer energy and the moon energy, which is why it's so huge as well. It's another reason why it's such a big solar eclipse event. So as such, the crab needs the safety and security of its home life in order to feel safe in the outside world. The crab, lest we forget, carries its home on its back, so to more easily retreat inside away from any approaching danger. So the home and the safety and the security are all going to be things that come up around this new moon energy, which is going to reverberate beyond where we are astrologically at this moment in time. So the moon is also the divine feminine, the archetypal empress in the tarot deck, and she relates to the eternal energy of the mother, also the universal womb, which is full of potential yet to be realized. The mother represents the carer, giver, the nurturer, the protectress, who calms our fears and keeps us safe from harm. Cancer also represents in this respect our childhood, our past, and our early childhood, both good and bad. So either aspects can become quite strongly magnified for us during this time as well. So during the time of a new moon, we tend to internalize our feelings as the moon wanes and shrinks and becomes smaller until it is no longer visible. On an emotional level, we may find ourselves responding in a similar way, particularly those with strong water placements. So we may find ourselves at this time and during the build up to the new moon as well, withdrawing, going within, becoming more introspective and wanting to retreat from the outer world, which is the kind of Cancerian safety, security element, the kind of wanting to go within into our shell and kind of hide away from everything. Giving ourselves time to reflect on those things from our past which have led up to the situations in our present that we may want to bring an end to as well, because the new moon is literally about beginnings. It's also kind of given us time to reflect on what it is that is no longer working for us and what we no longer need to take forward into our new start, because this is a new start. The new moon is a time of beginnings, of what, where, or who we are wanting to focus our attention on with this new energy that's coming in. So this is a huge new start for all of us. It's a new beginning. It's 0 point Cancer. It's a massive kind of overhaul, if you like, of the energies that we've been through. It's kind of the antithesis of the Capricorn energy that we've lived through over the last kind of 2 years or so, when those planets were kind of getting closer and closer together, even though they're still kind of in that energy. It's almost like that energy is still ongoing, but this Cancer energy is kind of coming in as a kind of a safety blanket. It's kind of wrapping us all in this kind of safety blanket in a way, a secure blanket. A kind of warmth and a kind of an energy of like, you know, it's going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. It's fine. Just kind of like, you know, trust. It will all turn out okay. The new moon will be a whole new start of something loving, nurturing and compassionate, right down to a heart level. A healing of the heart energy that has been blocked and closed off. This may also apply to the patriarchal systems of the world, who have suppressed the divine feminine for so very long. And I do think that we are going to see a huge upheaval when it comes to all these patriarchal systems, not least because of what happened in January with the conjunction of Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter, and that is still ongoing in the background as well. So all of those edifices are kind of coming down at this moment in time as well, and this kind of much more feminine energy is moving in to kind of gently, I feel, kind of hold us up and kind of just kind of keep us safe. That's how it feels. The reason that I say this is because during this new moon we also have a very powerful solar eclipse. So the solar eclipse is really, like I was saying, it's the divine masculine energy and the divine feminine energy together. So the solar eclipses are when the energy from the sun is shut out by the moon's nodes. In this case, it's the north node at 29 degrees of Gemini. Last full moon, it was the south node in Sagittarius. 2 weeks back, that gave us our partial lunar eclipse. So when the sun is eclipsed, it is like someone switching off the giant light in the sky. It cuts off the energy from the sun completely. And this is a complete solar eclipse. This is a bit like cutting out the old wires in an electrical system in order for them to be replaced, upgraded and reconnected with a new energy outlook, depending on the sign the solar eclipse occurs in. The world is being retuned to a new and different frequency. And that's really what an eclipse does. It kind of cuts off the energy of the old from whatever the sun has been through previously in the last eclipse. It cuts that point off of the solar eclipse and it kind of brings in this new frequency for us to start working with. And this is the Cancer energy that I've been kind of talking about. So in the sign of Cancer, I personally feel like the sun is being reintroduced at this point to its feminine, nurturing nature. This is a very feminine new moon solar eclipse, and I feel like it is opening us up to the importance of balancing these energies within the family unit, reminding us it takes both energies of the masculine and feminine to build a safe and secure environment in which to raise a child. Even though the feminine has proven it is possible to raise happy, healthy and mentally stable, loving children in her own right, the need for a loving, supportive, emotionally balanced masculine energy is of great value for all children, whether that be in the same home or not. The presence of the male has been missing for way too long from far too many lives. When I say the presence of the male, I mean one who is balanced, one who is secure and strong within their own masculine and feminine nature. And I feel that, again, this is quite a strong energy, something that we are going to be working through, especially over the next 18 months, also because of the Gemini energy that we're in as well, with the Gemini, with the moon or the moon's nodes actually sitting in Gemini for the next 18 months. The dualistic energy is going to be really kind of highlighted. It's where our kind of focus and our attention is going to be going towards the North Node, which is the Gemini energy. Another very interesting factor relating to this is that at this time we will have 8 planets all in feminine signs. And that's including the very strong masculine energy of Mars in Pisces. More about him later. Ironically, the only planet in a masculine sign is that of extremely feminine Venus in Gemini. And I believe very strongly this is about the balancing up of the masculine within the feminine and vice versa. And the whole gender issues we see being questioned. And I think that's another big part of it as well that we're going to see over the next 18 months. It's already been playing out, but also with the Eris energy squaring to Pluto, it's going to bring up a lot of this stuff as well. A lot of discord and disharmony within our kind of our own selves, our own appearance and our own identity. Who we identify with within ourselves, why we identify with that particular gender, or you know, is it nature, is it nurture? All these sort of things are going to really play out big time. I also think at this time we are going to see and see the questioning of the family, and especially the absence of the father figure. I believe that's going to play out on the world stage very strongly. I also include the role of the mother in this, as more and more mothers don't have the time to be there for their children anymore, due again to a system that has been created by a very patriarchal system, or society, sorry. So the question is it time to bring back and reinstate the values of being a mother, as well as ask ourselves as a society, what are these values we have long forgotten to consider important? The values of being a mother, what are they? Why are they no longer given the value that they once had or should have now as well? I think all of these things are going to become really highlighted over the next few years. So apart from the connection with the North Node, neither the Sun or the Moon are connecting with anything else in the sky. It's almost like whatever they are going through together at this time is being kept secret, which again can be a Cancerian thing, kind of bringing it in within and not kind of expressing it, just kind of holding it, carrying all those feelings and emotions inside. So it's kind of been hidden within the inner realm and kind of nurtured and kind of brought into this kind of strength in a way for it to be kind of brought forward, which is very Cancerian type energy. A Cancer mother is kind of a very nurturing, very protective energy with the Cancer mother. And it's the same kind of energy for this, I feel, as well, for whatever it is that this is going to bring forth. It's like it's being kept under wraps for a while until it's ready to be exposed to the outside world. And because it is eclipse energy, this could be up until the end of 2020 and beyond. So we could start to see this kind of thing playing out on the world stage for the next kind of, 6 months to a year. This really is a big energy shifting times we are living through. We've still got yet another lunar eclipse happening at the full moon in Capricorn on July the 5th. So that's also bringing that Capricorn energy back in as well. But it will also be about releasing again, because it's going to be the South Node, like it was previously with the full moon. When we had the full moon in Sagittarius, it was about letting go. The South Node is about what we need to release and let go of, what we've already kind of been through and learnt, and now we need to let it go, because we can't learn any more from that. Which is why we have to put our focus into the North Node energy, because the North Node is kind of pointing the way. It's like the North Star in a way, kind of like, this is your direction. This is where you need to put your attention and your focus. This new moon in Cancer, though, is by far the largest eclipse energy of 2020, and it is setting the world stage for what is yet to come. So we have Mars at 25 degrees 48 or 26 degrees in the 12th house of Pisces. He has recently had to cross over the top of mysterious and nebulous Neptune, a daunting prospect at any time, even for the dynamic fiery energy of warrior Mars, but even more so when Neptune is in her own home. Unfortunately for Mars, he is feeling far from dynamic or warrior-like at this time. He's also conjunct Neptune energy as well, so he's just had to go right over the top of this mysterious, nebulous kind of void type of energy. And he's still in that energy, even though he's moving past it and he's moving beyond it. The energy of Neptune is still kind of holding him there. So he hasn't escaped that yet. He's still kind of in that weird headspace, shall we say. Unfortunately for Mars, he's feeling far from dynamic or warrior-like at this time. He is now, however, on the last leg of his 2-year cycle. With the last few degrees left to go, he's been supported by both Jupiter and Pluto in double sextiles. Mars is beginning to see the light at the end of this very confusing and recently incredibly weird crossing over Neptune. Everything became incredibly weird, almost like living on a different planet. Recent incredibly weird tunnel. So it's like he's kind of been in this kind of tunnel vision, and he's kind of coming out, or he will be coming out. He has, after a series of squares during previous full and new moon phases, which I've spoken about in my previous full moon and new moon videos as well. So if you're interested, you could go back and watch them as well, because there's still some interesting information in those, even though we have kind of moved on in some ways. He has been forced to surrender and purge his sins. So Mars has been soul searching while releasing and relinquishing his very masculine warrior nature since he entered Pisces, which is now about 4 to 5 weeks ago. It seems almost like Mars has been in a retrograde. He's been moving so slowly, and it really does seem as though it's like this long, slow, drawn out process that Mars has been going through. Even though, like I say, he's not in retrograde, it's just this process of going through. It's like trying to move through treacle, really. That's how it's been feeling for Mars. Everything has been on a go slow. He's been submerged in the world of the deeper realms of dreams, illusions, mysteries, confusion, strangeness, the unknown, and often nonsensical imagination of Neptune and the 12th house. It is one of the reasons I believe we have been seeing people on their knees and sometimes on their bellies begging, asking, offering up forgiveness. Pisces, 12th house, is also the house of spirituality, the higher self, and unconditional love. So that is literally, for me, the kind of epitome of the Mars energy in Pisces is what we are seeing playing out within the policing forces. It's like, and people in general just getting on their knees in front of people and begging forgiveness for things that they're not even responsible for. It is interesting as well from an astrological point of view that it is the police that are being aimed at. Mars rules all things military, which also includes the policy enforcers, police. All of this is about to change as Mars will be entering his own home sign of Aries on the 28th of June, at which time he will be completely closing out his 2-year cycle, ready to start a new one, where he will be retrograde in his own sign for 4 months, but will stay in Aries in total for 6 months, up to the end of 2020. The energy of the second half of the year is about to make a huge, dramatic and dynamic turn. One last thing about the Mars energy. It has now reactivated the Neptune spot where the virus madness first got recognised as being out of its country of origin. So when it first became known about out of China was kind of when the spot that Neptune was at. So will we see a repeat performance? Possibly, as I'm sure the narrative will once again be pushed, but with all the social distancing now seemingly forgotten, and that's taking place all over the world as well. And those who enforced it in the first place being called out as those encouraging and supporting the right for peaceful protest, I think it will be a lot harder for them to fool the general public twice, and for the lockdown to continue in the same way it did previously. But there is a footnote to that, which I will come to later on. So going back to Neptune, Neptune is now sitting at 20 degrees and 57 minutes, or 21 degrees. And she is grinding to a halt as she prepares to go station retrograde. Neptune has been in her shadow phase since March 22nd, when she first began slowing down. She will station retrograde on June 23rd, so 2 days after the solar new moon eclipse. She will then retrograde back to 18 degrees 09 minutes, which she will reach on November 29th. Station direct, and then begin her forward movement up until March the 19th, 2021. During this time, she will only move just over 2.5 degree points. But this is significant, as these are the points we have just lived through from March to June, during which the pandemic scare was at its height. So Neptune is about to turn retrograde to go back all the way over those same points that she's just gone across from March to June. And she's been going over them in her shadow, because they are the points that she's now stopping at and going to go back across. And then she will move forward again, and she's not going to come out of that shadow until March of 2021. So that's a long period of time. In all, Neptune would have been in shadow for about a year in all. So Neptune moves so incredibly slow. So we are really going to kind of, in a way, relive those experiences. So I would like to do a bit of retrospection and see what was happening astrologically during those early days. As Neptune went into shadow on March the 2nd, the whole pandemic fear exploded around the world, causing much confusion about the facts of how it all began and where did it come from. We began to see complete hysteria as Jupiter was sextile Neptune, which is going to be happening again as Neptune goes retrograde, and as Jupiter will once again station direct and will move forward. It's like they're both going to be sailing along together in sextile. Both Jupiter and Pluto will be making this sextile with Neptune, which is basically a repeat performance of what was going on last time. So we began to see a complete hysteria as Jupiter was sextile Neptune, blowing everything out of proportion, while the Sun, which was also in Pisces at this time, was highlighting all those Piscean and Neptunian 12th house attributes of the unknown, illusory, things you can't see, boundarylessness, and I'm not sure if that's a word, but if it isn't, it should be. And of course, all things viral and plague, which is ruled by Neptune. 12th house, unknown, all that kind of energy. To make matters even worse, Mercury was also there at 0.3 degrees in Pisces, just to add to the confusion and media certainty, which, as luck would have it, the universe had decided to place Chiron, the wounded healer, who just happened to be in a conjunction with Black Moon Lilith. And Black Moon Lilith is a point in the sky represented by the dark side of the moon when it is furthest away from the Earth. And it's known as the point of apogee, furthest away point from the Earth. Black Moon Lilith is understood to be the dark, evil, twisted, sinister side of the female. She represents the kind of things that remain in the dark, the things that no one wants to face within the psyche of human nature, the things that get buried as the truth of them is too hard to deal with. Symbolically, this can be seen as the poison rising to the surface globally. In order for a healing process, Chiron, wounded healer, to be able to be achieved. This energy can also be symbolised as the black widow spider who eats her young if and when they fall from her back. Black Moon Lilith energy is dark. It is dark energy. Dark. Like black magic, dark energy. Nasty, dark. So this period of Shadow Neptune brought forth all the dark and hidden fears of our deep subconscious as a collective, which the media ran with, especially around the time of the March 9th, when we had a full moon in Virgo, which represents all health medical issues, which may well also have played a large part in the whole wash your hands, keep your distance, and wear a mask idea originated from. These issues become highlighted by the spotlight of the sun, or became highlighted, sorry, by the spotlight of the sun conjunct Neptune at that time, which was feeding into and firing up all that Neptunian energy and sending it rampant with the help of Jupiter, still sextile. So that was Jupiter kind of blowing everything out of proportion. That's what Jupiter does. It expands the energy of anything that it comes into contact with. So it's still in that same kind of place, that same kind of energy. So that's why we're probably going to see the same kind of rhetoric repeat itself here. While at the same time, Mercury, who was retrograde, backtracked into Aquarius, the sign of the collective, the people, thus spreading the story far and wide but lacking all the information. And we also have to remember that Saturn also went into Aquarius as well, and that was really when the lockdown began, or talk of lockdown began, and then lockdown started, and to actually enforce that lockdown, Mars moved into Aquarius as well. So when Saturn and Mars joined together in Aquarius, the lockdown really hit, because it was kind of the military and the police enforcing those new laws or rules on us, which were being imposed by the Saturn energy in Aquarius, because Saturn restricts. So the Mercury energy at that time it just kind of ran with this like story, even because Mercury is the ruler of media, and even though it didn't have all the information, it just kind of just put it out there. It was just like fear, really, that kind of took over, which also has a part to do with Black Moon Lilith as well, I believe, personally. So Chiron and Black Moon Lilith continued to sail along together, having begun that journey at the end of January. So they started coming together at the end of January, Chiron and Black Moon Lilith, but slowly getting closer and closer until their exact conjunction occurred in Aries on March the 3rd at 4 degrees and 5 minutes. While at the same time they just happened to both be making squares over to the South Node in Capricorn and the North Node in Cancer, which actually created a perfect T-square, meaning all the energy from both the nodes' placements was balanced out and through the Chiron Black Moon Lilith conjunction, triggering feelings of needing to feel safe and secure, and where better than in the home, Cancer, North Node, on lockdown, with rules made by authoritarian governments and establishments, Capricorn, South Node, to enforce it. And as if that wasn't enough, to cap it all off was the trine from Uranus in Taurus, also at 4 degrees to the South Node Capricorn, and sextile the North Node Cancer, with Uranus conjunct Venus. So it all happened very suddenly, very unexpectedly, but we accepted it very easily due to the fact that Venus was kind of softening the blow for us there with the conjunction to Uranus, the sudden, the unexpected. But there was Venus saying it's okay, it's good for your own good, it's going to keep you safe, you're going to be all right, just do as you're told. So that was basically why we all kind of just accepted what we were told. So will we see a repeat performance? Possibly. We will see the same kind of noise and hysteria hit the media. Jupiter at 25 degrees and 0 minutes and Pluto at 24 degrees and 18 minutes are both retrograde, going to be travelling along in long-term sextile energy again with Neptune. Jupiter up until the end of November and Pluto right through to the end of December, as Neptune crosses over that spot for the second and third time. At the start of this Neptune retrograde period, we also have Mercury already turned retrograde in another water sign, this time in Cancer. So yes, things could once more get a little crazy. As this Neptune will be trining over to Mercury, just to add some more confusion and illusion to a situation no one as yet seems to be able to pin the facts down on, or the truth of it being kept hidden. Either way, the information is changing all the time, and we can expect more of the same. So even though it's been ongoing for a while now, nobody really seems to know or have any definite information on this. There's no definite, this is what it is, this is how it does this, etc., etc. And also there seems to be a lot of kind of opposing information as well. So it's also a case of who do you listen to, who do you trust, who's telling the truth, who's kind of trying to pull the wool over our eyes. There's also all these kind of, you know, Neptunian, illusionary kind of questions as well, especially with Mercury trining to Neptune. So on July the 1st, Saturn moves back into Capricorn, And when this happens, it's going to feel like the shutters have come down once again on all our freedoms. All those who believe they have the right to tell us how we should be living our lives are going to turn up the heat to boiling point. Saturn in his home of Capricorn will come down on us like a ton of bricks. In truth, the towers and edifices, structures, are falling down around them and us. And the quicker they fall, the harder they will try to encroach more and more on our human rights. And the tighter the grip will become. We must remember that both Saturn, planet of restriction, and Pluto, planet of power, always work through adversity. So what will seem like a no-hope situation globally will actually be awakening more and more to the reality of their existence. Finally, on 21st of December, 6 months after this new moon solar eclipse in Cancer, Saturn and Jupiter will meet at the 0 degree point of Aquarius. It is from this conjunction that momentous things will truly start to take place over the course of the next few years. It could even be said this is the birthing of the age of Aquarius. And what we will be experiencing over the next 6 months are the painful pangs of this birthing. So in my previous videos as well, I talked about how when Saturn was in Aquarius with Mars, there was kind of this, it felt to me like the Aquarian energy or the Aquarian conception was taking place at that time, because there was also a trine over to Venus in Gemini. I believe it's in Gemini. Yeah. Venus in Gemini trining over to the energy of Aquarius. So it's like pulling the energy of that love in, the light of the morning star as she was at the time, into the energy of the Aquarius. So we had the water, we had the fire, we had the earth, and we had the air elements all together within that one sign. We had the air element of the of Aquarius itself, and the water being the water sign as well. So it was like all those elements came together, and I think this happened back, well, it was in March, it was in the March period. So if you take the time from March to the end of December, it's kind of the same birthing or pregnancy period. It's a 9-month period. So from when that kind of took place to the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction that is going to take place on the 21st of December, it's literally like it has been a gestation period of 9 months. That's kind of how I see it. And when I was kind of shown that energy of this kind of thing like that was taking place, it was just like, wow, it was just an amazing kind of recognition for me of the fact that this was actually happening. And then to find out, you know, that 9 months later Saturn and Jupiter were going to meet up in the very 0 degree points of Aquarius was quite kind of mind-blowing. So at the time of the new moon in Cancer solar eclipse, we will have 5 retrograde planets, which is pretty huge. It will be a time of retrospective energy. 2 days later, Neptune will station retrograde and Venus will station direct shortly after on the same day. Mercury is one of those retrograde planets, having entered its own shadow period on June the 2nd and started slowing down from the 0.5 degree mark or 29-minute mark. It was already getting prepared to turn station retrograde, which it does from between the 18th and 20th of June, just the day prior to the new moon solar eclipse. It's actually turning retrograde today as I speak. So Mercury has now reached 14 degrees and 45 minutes, or 15 degrees in Cancer, and has begun its backward journey through the sky. Mercury is in the deeply feeling, sensitive sign of the Crab, the same energy where the new moon takes place, which will heighten this energy even more, especially if you have any placements between the points of 05 degrees 29 and 14 degrees 45 minutes, or 15 degrees, in this sign, or the opposing sign of Capricorn, same degrees, 5 degrees 29 minutes, or 14 degrees 45 minutes, make that 15 degrees. And just like Venus in Gemini, Mercury in Cancer will be crossing over the face of the Sun, which is also known as caziming, during its retrograde period, meeting up at 09 degrees 44 or 10 degrees. Mercury will once again be cleansed by the fire of the Sun on July the 1st, which, interestingly enough, is also the same day that Saturn enters back into the sign of Capricorn. Interestingly, they are both making squares with Chiron, the wounded healer. So Mercury and the Sun, when they meet up together and cazimi, or Mercury cazimis the Sun, they are both making square energy over to Chiron, the wounded healer, in Aries. And Chiron, the wounded healer, relates to wounds generationally, as well as previous lifetimes. So they're long-lasting wounds, basically, things that we've carried with us for lifetimes, or previous generations that we have kind of carried for them, that they have kind of like, you know, have these wounds have kind of been passed on, shall we say, from our parents, grandparents, generationally. And these can go way back. Way back. So this is a time of a new narrative. Mercury is saying it's time to heal and clear our minds from the stories we keep telling ourselves over and over again. Time to weave new loving thoughts that will lead us to new patterns of behaviour. Time to let go of the stories, the past hurts and wounds that keep us stuck, and move gently and slowly into a space where we are kind, caring and considerate to ourselves, while we allow ourselves to create new memories. So this is kind of, for me, it's the kind of generational thing of like, if you can change a thought pattern, if you can change a idea, and stop doing something that you have done kind of robotically almost, you can change that from 7 generations previous to 7 generations into your future. So that's 14 generations. That is a massive amount of generations. So kind of what it says is that 7 generations ago, something started that is still being carried through now. And this, I also feel, is kind of on a global scale as well, that we kind of keep repeating the same stories over and over again, and we just keep coming up with the same results. And that is also individually as well. So if we change that pattern and we don't kind of put that ideas and those things that are no longer working for us into the future generations, it's like 7 generations into the future that it's no longer going to affect, which is massive. So also with this Mercury Sun Chiron transit, there may be news coming out about this pandemic that is so startling and shocking that at first it will be difficult and challenging for us to accept. that it actually took place. And I do believe that this is going to be so, and I do believe that this is going to also cause a lot of upheaval. A lot of upheaval. I think eventually this is going to come out. The story and the truth of this will come out. And people are not going to be happy at all. So during this Mercury retrograde of 5 to 6 weeks, we are being given the chance to reevaluate, reconsider, reassess our choices and situations around our home life, our family, our security, and what it means for us individually as well as collectively. This may include questions that arise around the feminine energies of nurturing and mothering, situations from the past, long forgotten memories, people we no longer communicate with. We may see long forgotten people return into our lives, especially female relatives and friends that we have lost touch with. As well as all that, Mercury in Cancer, like all the water signs, can feel like having your head in a bucket of water and trying to learn how to breathe. This time can cause a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunications. And I also feel the same for the Mars energy as well, the energy of Mars having just gone through the sign of Pisces, the water, kind of the representation of the ocean, the kind of the vastness and the void and the kind of submergence into that watery world, if you like. And I found it interesting again how the kind of the idea of not being able to breathe that came out or was put out as a slogan, "We can't breathe." I thought that was quite an interesting, from an astrological view of looking at what was taking place with Mars at that time as well. And even Mercury as well, both being in water signs. So that was kind of our Mars being our action, our kind of fire, our passion, our drive, and Mercury being our mind. It was like, you know, they were both kind of like in this state of not being able to fully kind of fogginess and confusion, and this sense of like, you know, if you're underwater for too long, you can't breathe unless you've got oxygen on your back. You know, you cannot breathe. So I just found it interesting as well astrologically. So saying that this came out as a kind of not an affirmation as such, but kind of, you know, like a slogan, something that could be picked up on and kind of run with. So yeah, lots of miscommunication, lots of misunderstandings around this time. We need to slow down and give ourselves extra time to do everything, particularly travel. Anything related to travel, you need to kind of say, right, okay, if I'm going here, particularly if it's long distance travel, you want to try and give yourself extra day, half day, just in case anything should go wrong. Because when Mercury's retrograde, inevitably it does. Anything to do with journeys, journeying, communication, post, emails, texts, miscommunication, misunderstandings. So just be aware that that energy is there. So check everything in triplicate. Don't allow yourself to feel rushed into anything. And remember to check in with your instincts and gut feelings often, because that's where it all lies at this time. Cancer energy, Pisces energy, it's all about the feelings, it's all about the intuition, it's all about the deeper knowing. So Venus at this time remains retrograde at 05 degrees 38, but is getting ready to station direct, which she does on the 25th of June at 05 degrees and 20 minutes at 1 a.m. in the morning. And I find it really fascinating and a real kind of coincidence that both Venus and Mercury went into shadow at the same degree mark. They both went into shadow at 05 degrees. And Mercury will also follow this pattern of moving forward at 1 a.m. on July the 14th. Also the same day Venus stations direct, Neptune will be turning retrograde. Lots of movement backward in the sky, lots of reflection and reassessing of our lives, lots of retrospection overall. Venus will start her forward journey back toward her shadow point of 21 degrees and 15 minutes, where she originally stationed retrograde on May the 13th at, I kid you not, 1 a.m. UK time. Venus is continuing to decide what it is she values most in her life and her relationships. She has, during this retro period, Cazimid across the sun and been reborn as the evening star. She is no longer the same energy she started on this journey. Being as she has now begun her new 8-year cycle as the evening star, she is much more aware and understanding of what it is she does and doesn't want in her life. What it is she does and doesn't value any longer. She is now allowing herself to claim the right for whatever it is that will bring her heart and soul happiness. Venus will begin to move forward with this aim embedded in her psyche, giving herself time to digest what she has newly discovered as she recrosses the same path for the third time. She will leave her shadow behind on July 29th at 062 minutes UK time. And again, Venus in Gemini, the dualistic energy, which could also represent that energy of the twin flame energy, which is personally what I think this whole kind of Venus awareness is becoming as well. Is that, you know, it's like I'm not going to put up with something just because I want to be in a relationship. I'm not going to allow myself to be less than I am. So Saturn has now reached 0 degrees and 41 minutes of Aquarius, and is still making his way back to his home territory, which he will do on July the 1st. But before that happens, on the 30th of June at the 30th of June, Jupiter and Pluto will meet up once again for their second of 3 meetings in Capricorn. As I said earlier, both will be sextile and retrograde Neptune. So this will be a time globally of reevaluating, reassessing and reconsidering where we all stand after the lockdown and the seriousness of what it has all meant for us. This will also include the ongoing story of the rioting in the streets as Pluto continues to square Eris in Aries, while being buoyed along by Jupiter, by Jupiter's overexpansive energy. Jupiter doing what Jupiter does best, expanding the energy he connects with, either as a positive or negative effect. We need to remember that it was only a fortnight back we had a full moon lunar eclipse in Jupiter, in Jupiter's own sign of Sagittarius, the energy of which will continue for at least 6 months. And so when the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, the full moon lunar eclipse that happened 2 weeks back in Sagittarius, brought to the forefront all this kind of searching for truth and freedom and justice, and it was really the beginning of this whole kind of Black Lives Matter outpouring that we're seeing at this moment in time as well. All very Sagittarius qualities or attributes, the kind of wanting to get to the bottom of things, seeking the truth, searching for the reality of things as well. And I will just add there, because it's kind of just come into my head, it's not in my notes, but it's just kind of been put into my head, that this energy, which can be a very positive thing, because it's kind of an uprising of the people, and the people saying, you know, we are not happy with what's happening, which is fair enough, and we have the right to protest. Again, that's fair enough. But what we have to remember is that there are people who are ready and willing to take advantage of these situations, and they will and do so. So we also have to be very discerning at a time when we've got Neptune trining Mercury, and discernment is hard to find, really hard to find, because it's just a foggy, confusing mess, basically. Okay, so back to the energy of Eris, which is all about discord and non-unity, and it's showing itself as separatism, divide and conquer, and using the banner of racism and anti-establishment, the breakdown of law and order mixed up within the desire and passion for truth and freedom. All those Sagittarius full moon eclipse, where the South Node is, interestingly. So this is kind of all our beliefs and things that we need to release as well, and need to get out of our systems and out of our society, because it's in more ways than one holding everything back. And really, ultimately, it's kind of trying to say, you know, there is no such thing really any longer as racism as such. You can be racist being black, you can be racist being white. Racism is a personal thing, rather than it being something that is kind of now a overall kind of, how can I put it, like the slavery days and that kind of thing. It's no longer, because that's no longer in our personal history, in, you know, as in we haven't grown up living with these beliefs that it's okay to do this on a personal level. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people who aren't still carrying those ideas through. And this is kind of what I'm meaning about, you know, changing your idea from 7 generations previous to into the future. If you keep putting that idea out there that, you know, racism exists, then racism is going to exist, because you're kind of feeding into it. So the more we feed into it, the more we're going to see it play out. And it's a dangerous game. It's a very dangerous game. And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get to here, is that it's a dangerous game that can be manipulated. And with Eris squaring Pluto at this time, Eris being all about discord, all about non-unity, all about disharmony, all about trying to separate, divide, conquer, keeping the people separate. The more we can separate the people, the easier it is for others to control, basically. So the problem with this as well is that Eris herself is at very early stages of her own development and growth. Being newly discovered in the sign of Aries, she's still incredibly hot-headed and is, as of yet, to be integrated into our psyche. It's like we don't talk about Eris because most people haven't heard about Eris. Most people kind of understand that we've got these other planets, and they, you know, some level they will understand that they can affect us on this planet, etc., etc. But when you introduce a new energy in, one that hasn't had a history, then we have to kind of give it time to settle or digest into our own psyches so that we understand that energy and what it's doing to us. And at this time, because Eris is young, newly discovered, we don't really, on a kind of human psyche level, shall we say, relate to that energy yet. But it is there. And the interesting thing about Eris for me as well is the fact that Eris moved into Aries, I think it was around about 1922. So in 2 years' time, she will have been in Aries for 100 years, which means that just about everybody on this planet today has Eris in Aries somewhere in their natal chart, because it is such a slow moving energy. Everybody has Eris in Aries. And I just find that really quite astounding. And also the fact that she's reaching the end. I don't think she like actually leaves Aries until about 2040 something, I think it is. I might be wrong there. It might be earlier, but I know there's still kind of quite a few more years to go, because she's only at 24 degrees now, which is why she's making these exact squares to Pluto. And she's going to be making these exact squares to Pluto because both Pluto and Eris are very slow moving energies. So we're going to see a lot more of this rioting on the streets. We're going to see a lot more of this discord, this disharmony within our own psyches, and this kind of craving for human rights and freedom. But at the same time, because Saturn is moving back into Capricorn, we're also going to see a lot more kind of cracking down on that. So there is going to be this kind of interesting dichotomy, dynamic between these planets that's going to take place over the next 6 months. So lastly, what I would like to say about Eris as well, that she is the yes, okay, so she needs to be brought into the astrological picture is basically what I'm trying to say. We need to kind of bring her in out of the cold more and more. She's no longer allowed to remain the unwanted and ignored part of the female psyche, which is basically what she represents. She represents the part of a female warrioress nature. She is the warrior, female warrior, and she's the kind of female that you don't want to invite to your party because she will just disrupt and upset. So of course she doesn't get invited, and the more she gets pushed away and isn't invited in, the more disruption she's going to cause, because she wants to be seen, she wants to be known, she's demanding attention, and the only way she can get it is by being discordant and by being outrageous. So until we kind of bring her in out of the cold and acknowledge that, I kind of feel that there's, you know, a lot more of this going to be taking place. She also interestingly ousted Pluto as well, who she is actually squaring with. It was the discovery of Eris that Pluto lost his place as a planet. So that is also another interesting side note. So even then, on her discovery, she was already causing trouble and strife, which is basically what she does. So the strongest energies during the new moon solar eclipse and moving forward into the next couple of months at least are that of Cancer, 4th house, and I'll just give you a quick rundown of what those energies are. Home, safety, security, maternal, nurture, kindness, childhood, sensitivity, intuitive, caring, giving, compassionate, deep feelings, the past, memories, the universal womb. And then the Pisces 12th house energies: creativity, illusion, the subconscious, boundaryless, plagues, nebulousness, addictions, victimhood, instinctual, the unknown, mysterious, mystical, ancient knowledge, esoteric, the void, higher self, and unconditional love. Both of these houses are ruled by the element of water, so we may find ourselves turning more inwardly and tuning into our deeper knowing and being asked at this time to really trust what we feel is right for us as individuals, and trying not to get caught up in all the mayhem that is going to be happening around us at this time as well. As well as learning to love those parts of ourselves that we have submerged and buried somewhere deep inside. Again, it feels like hidden treasure. We are seeking from within. This new moon solar eclipse gives us an opportunity to heal what has been broken and to feel the unity. So I'd now like to kind of talk a little bit about the Sabian symbols here. There are two Sabian symbols. There is no Sabian symbol for the 0 degree mark. I talked about Sabian symbols previously in my other video, so I'm going to bring them in again this time. There is two, but I'm just going to read you the last one, which is the 1 degree point of Cancer. There is no 0 point, like I said. There's only the 29 point of Gemini, and then it goes into... No, sorry, there's the 30 point of Gemini, which doesn't actually exist, so I don't know why that's there, because there is no 30 point. It's like 29 degrees, and then it goes to 0, so... The 1 degree point for me makes much more sense, and it says, on a ship the sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. And the keynotes here are a radical change of allegiance exteriorized in a symbolic act, a point of no return, which really is and has been the message for the kind of past 6 months. There is no return. There is no going back. This is what has been said over and over again. I've said it in all my videos over and over again. There is no going back. Saturn, Pluto, conjunction, no going back. End of. Finished. Everything is changing. So we have now reached a square, and in brackets it says go degree angle, to the beginning of the cyclic process. This is a moment of crisis, a sharp turning point in the zodiacal cycle at the summer solstice. The northward motion of the sun in decimation stops. So the sun does actually stop. It will stop for 3 days before it will start moving forward again. And when it does start to move forward, of course, it will start going lower and lower, slowly and slowly, until we get to the kind of winter solstice, lowest point, darkest day of the year. So the sun rises and sets as far north of exact east and west as it can during the year cycle. Its motion is now reversed. Slowly the sunset points move southward on the western horizon, and the length of the day decreases in the lunation cycle from new moon to new moon. This is the first quarter phase. On the ship, which symbolises the ego consciousness floating as it were on the sea of the vast unconscious, which for me kind of represents life. I always see ships as being kind of a representation of life. I don't know why, but I do. Probably because that's how I depict them in my tarot cards. The individualized will make a basic decision. The dominant yang force allows the yin force, masculine and feminine energies, to begin its 6-month-long rise to power. The collective will gradually overcome the individual, and at the end, the state will overpower the person. Now, however, the individual person enjoys his most glorious hour. He exults in his ability to make a free decision, i.e. to act as an individual who selects his life goal and his allegiance. This is the first stage in the 19th five-fold series of degree symbols in a decisive act heavy with consequences. The symbolic college youth might realise that he should bring to an end his quest for the ideal companion and enter into matrimony. He assents to the possibility of progeny, of home responsibility. His consciousness accepts a process of fundamental reorientation, implying the stabilisation of his energies. And so for me, that kind of sums up the masculine and the feminine energies again as well. I think a lot of it is going to be about these masculine and feminine energies. Particularly, I think, with this talking about the male realising that he needs to kind of settle down in many ways and kind of like, you know, stop being quite so, like the youth energy is kind of coming to an end. It's kind of time for it to, and I feel as though, you know, it's a maturity that we're having to realise, but the maturity has to be within both the masculine and the feminine energies as well. So personally, I think the Cancer degree point here makes much more sense, but I didn't read you the other one, so. But we do have interesting times lying ahead, and until next time, as above, so below, and time is here now. So, I will quickly show you the moon cards, which I meant to show you earlier. We have the new moon in Cancer. You and your loved ones are safe, which is the energy that we're all kind of working with for this new moon. Literally the home, the security, the safety. And be bold and make the first move, which is a cardinal moon, which is the cardinal point that this new moon solar eclipse is taking place at as well. It's a cardinal moon on a cardinal point. So it's very much about destiny. It's very much about taking hold, if you like, of your future points here. Taking hold globally. It's time we kind of take back our destiny and don't leave it down to others to decide it for us, is kind of what I feel it's saying. So I'm very quickly going to pull as a last card here for this new moon in Cancer solar eclipse energy. One card please for the energy from the Ask and It Is Given cards. One card please for the solar eclipse. Solar eclipse, new moon, Cancer energy, new moon, solar eclipse in Cancer energy. Okay, what do we have? We have, I am a vibrational transmitter and receiver. And there's a little house there, which is very Cancerian. I like that. There's the little house, the little safety and security of our homes. And we all want to feel safe and secure in our home. So, in every moment you are broadcasting a very specific vibrational signal that is instantly being understood and answered, and immediately your present and future circumstances begin changing in response to the signal you are projecting. The entire universe right now is being affected by what you are offering. That's quite a big message for quite a big, mega upcoming new moon solar eclipse. So our thoughts, basically what it's saying here is our thoughts are going to make all the difference for our upcoming future. So be careful what we are thinking. Be careful where we put our thoughts and what we focus our attention on. These cards, by the way, are the Abraham Hicks cards. Esther Hicks, Esther and Abraham is the entity. Esther and Jerry Hicks cards. So I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you very much for watching my video. Please could you thumbs it up for me, like it, and help me get it out into the bigger world of the YouTube platform, so that other people can watch it and hopefully come back to my channel and subscribe. Thank you very much to all of you who have subscribed. I really hope you do enjoy my astrological write-ups and reports. I know they're a bit wacky, non-conventional, a bit like myself, and I just hope that you find something in them somewhere that's going to be of some help. So also please could you tap the bell so you can get the future videos as and when I put them out. I will be doing a actual tarot read for this new moon as well, which I will do actually on the day of the new moon, because I like to do it while the energies are actually at their height. So with that being said, I'm going to say thank you very much again for watching. Please take very good care of yourselves and anybody else that you can, and please enjoy this new moon solar eclipse in Cancer. It is going to be life-changing. Hopefully see you again soon.